Okay, so we want to do a live demonstration of CamControl, and we're going to turn down the tunes and get this ready to basically give you a good overview over what it is that CamControl is, what it isn't, and how you can utilize it in your workflows. So one of the philosophies behind a lot of the BirdDog products is to make them obviously as professional as we possibly can, to adhering to broadcast standards, but making them accessible so that you don't have to have a degree in some sort of broadcasting education in order to get started into this world. And part of it is because there are thousands, if not probably millions of people that are streaming or are a part of some sort of internet or online video capture rigmarole that basically they are required to understand some level of this, this broadcasting world. And so we want to bring accessibility, but we also want to still provide all the professional, features that people come to expect when buying cameras and interacting with production gear. Now, on the other side of this is that we are trying really hard to let me just mute this. We're trying really hard to make it all accessible, make it user-friendly. There are certain levels, though, that you need to understand when it comes to broadcasting gear. We obviously design our cameras to hit certain types of people or needs, to fill certain needs. So like the P100 is a small desktop camera, essentially. PTZ control, it's full NDI, has a really solid sensor inside. But the P200, which is another $1,000 more expensive here in the US, that camera is kind of like the next level of broadcasting expectation, because it provides a lot more control over some color specifics, but also it has a better sensor. So you're paying for more expensive sensor. And lastly, that same lens and optical ability is inside the A200, and the A300, as well as the P200. So when you buy a P200 and you spend that sort of money, you're kind of getting additional control and getting some additional coloration. Now, the same will be true with the P4K, which is going to be the major broadcasting camera. It's going to be in the $8,000 range here in the US, and it is going to give you a ton more of color control because it's a much larger sensor, and it is that's the sensor that Sony uses in their broadcast cameras. So we're especially proud of this camera that's coming out here probably by the end of the month, and that camera is going to give you all sorts of control. Now, it's substantially more expensive than a P200, and so if you buy a P200 but you're looking for P4K control, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for a much better sensor, and you're paying for all sorts of more dialed-in options. So when you buy your fleet of cameras, whatever it is that you're integrating with, when you purchase BirdDog cameras, we're trying to make them as accessible as possible, and CamControl is the answer for that, because up until now, you've had to log into the web UI or go into the OSD and change the menus, and then log into the web UI and change the options there and make sure everything is kind of set up as you want it to be. And there was really no way to do a side-by-side comparison and also see it happening in real time. So the engineers over at BirdDog basically created this program so that it would bring in up to 3 different cameras all at the same time, and you could do a side-by-side and adjust the settings as needed. And initially, we were really excited about the copy settings, and we'll talk about that in a second. Basically, take the settings from one camera and apply them on another. But what we're finding is that really you need to find, if you're going to set up multiple cameras in the same area with lighting and that sort of thing, you're going to want to go in and fine-tune each of the cameras specifically, instead of leaving them on full auto and trying to copy and paste the options. And the reason for that is because each camera is going to be approaching the subject from, in theory, different angles. And so they're going to be letting in different amounts of light, and the sensors are going to be reading things differently. And so it's not just a matter of copying the settings from one and exporting and importing them on another, because your venue is different than the next guy's, and there's really no way for a manufacturer to plan for every eventuality that people are going to deploy these. So CamControl became more so than just we are going to create a program that people can copy and paste their settings, to we're going to create a program where people can log into each of their devices and fine-tune the camera so that they can get them exactly how they want, to the limitations of what the camera can offer. And that goes back to the conversation about color and about the options that the camera can provide. Some of that, actually most of that, by the way, the P4K, for example, will have all sorts of additional coloration options, but that's because of the capabilities of the lens itself. That goes down to what the lens is able to differentiate, whereas the P200 is an entry-level broadcast camera, but the sensor is not that deep. So even if we added those options on the screen, it really wouldn't be a true alteration to those colors, because the lens just can't do it. There's eventually a limit to the hardware. And so, the half-inch Sony sensor can do a lot, way more than the P100, but the P4K, which is a full inch, can do a ton more, because it's gathering a lot more data, has a much bigger processor, and requires it to understand the image in depths that the P200 can't do. So you're purchasing those options. That's what you're doing, and you're purchasing, especially with P4K, you're going to have this huge, beautiful sensor that's going to be able to let in all sorts of light, that's going to be able to capture images in true 4K, and that's really going to be able to, you can fine-tune it, right down to the broadcasting standards. That's what you pay for. So look forward to that, and CamControl is going to help us do that. So we want to do a live demo. Here is the website. If you haven't been there yet, bird-dog.tv/camcontrol-overview, or just go to bird-dog.tv, and this is going to land you on our page. And here under Products, CamControl, you can get the free copy, 100% free. So you need to hear that. I'll say that a few times during the show. 100% free. You go here, scroll down, check it out, see what all the options are. This is a BirdDog exclusive product. It does not work with other cameras because we don't know the secret sauce of everyone else's camera. We only know our own. And so that's how we can tap into all of these options and write it for this specific program. So this is an incentive to move to a BirdDog fleet in the next year or two, get everything working on the same system. Pretty exciting stuff when you unify everything together. That was the wrong word. Not unify the company. When you buy the same product and use all the same product, then you get all the bells and whistles that come with it. Scroll down here and say download now and get the quick start guide, and you'll be up and running, or just watch this tutorial. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to let me just switch here for a second. I'm going to open up CamControl. It installs and gets put on your start menu, and yoink, we'll run it. And it will open and look like this. Very basic setup. Not a whole lot of fun stuff to look at initially. If you have no cameras, this is what you're going to see. But what we do is we let it load. We let it sit for maybe 15 seconds. Then we hit the big plus symbol that is in the middle, and it's going to pull up your source list. Now, these cameras need to be on your NDI network, which should be a 255.255.255 subnet. If you are doing something different, you might have to get Access Manager involved, and you're going to have to customize some stuff. So be careful about that, and be sure that you are running on a NDI designed, preferably TCP network or Discovery server. I'm going to do a different video on Discovery server in another day, but be sure that you're set up so that your cameras can all talk on the same network, so that CamControl, which needs to be running on a Windows PC, by the way, Windows 10. This computer is also on the same network, same subnet, and so within the same IP range, and so it can see these cameras no problem. And what we're going to do is we're going to click the plus button and hit Cam, select my first camera, and that's the one here on my desk, and right there, hey. And then I'm going to select this one and select Knudsen Cam, which is my demo kit, and that's over here on my desk. Oh, and you can see OBS open. And so here we go. We got both cameras up and running side by side, and we can take a look at all of the options that are inside this. Now, the other cool thing about this is that you not only can we see all of the settings, okay? So we can scroll down here, and we can see all the settings that are available also in the web UI. So if you wanted to go to the web UI, just go to Chrome, type in https ://BirdDog C5547.local, and it would take me to this camera, or I could type in the IP address, which would be a lot easier. But type in the IP address, it would take me to the web UI, and I would see all of these options on the actual coloration page. And so we could, open up picture 1 tab, picture 2. It's all under the A/V setup page. Adding half a crop overlay between cameras, looking. I'll get back to the half a crop question after the video. So we can get to all of our settings here. The other nice thing is that we have camera control inside of this. So perhaps we don't want to use Studio Monitor. Perhaps we want to, maybe we only have 3 cameras on our setup. A lot of houses of worship are doing 2 or 3 cameras. And so we just want to do it here and call our show from here. Well, you can definitely do that. And you can edit all the settings on the fly if you want. Because everything is here at your fingertips. And so a couple of things to note here. When CamControl loads, it loads the default NDI speed for the camera. And so here it's full on, which is like plus 18 or something like that. If you go full off, it will basically barely move. But I like to keep it around like 3 or 4, which is in this realm, which makes for a nice, smooth, slow panning, especially if you're at a production booth and you're zoomed in, which these things have 30 times optical zoom. So if you're zoomed all the way in and you want to follow somebody, you can definitely do that here, or you can set up your next shot. You also have access to all of your presets, and so we can recall presets as needed. All right. And so as that, there's my Kibo coffee. So as you want to call the show or something like that, we can definitely do that from this location. The speed, though, is for live panning, okay? So that is referencing a setting, which is actually an NDI request that will pan the camera at this NDI speed. Presets are done just full throttle. The idea is that it needs to get to that location with those settings when you hit the preset button. So it tries to respond immediately. Here, this is actually a slider that you hold and move up and down. Obviously, I'm zoomed all the way out, so that doesn't do anything. But if I zoom in, you can vary the speed. And when you let go, obviously, it stops. But if you go like full on, it will zoom in quickly. If you pull back a little bit, it will do a slow zoom back. So you have full control of that. And you can also adjust the, this is way too close to my face. You can also adjust the focus control, which I'm not going to bother with right now. Okay, on to some of the automatic versus manual settings. So with the adjustments, if you want to do any of the like white balance, if you want to talk about exposure, if you want to do all this picture stuff, you need to basically set this not on full auto, because this is just running on autopilot basically, and the sensor is doing its best job to understand what it is that should be, how it looks naturally. I have an actual light here that's running about 7,000 Kelvin, and so coloration is correct for the most part. I try to match it to my webcam. The Knudsen cam, I haven't actually done any coloration with that, so you'll notice a bit of a difference there. I'm a little bit red in that photo, so we can adjust that a bit later. But you hit adjustments, and these are the 3 other options that you get inside the web UI: manual, shutter priority, and iris. So if you go full manual, and then we can change our white balance to whatever we want. So this is actually like a white light, so I could say outdoor. It's a little bit warm for what it should be, but we can maybe say manual, and then we can adjust things as needed. Okay, so it actually recalled both of these settings right away, and now I've got to monkey around with these numbers and get these as I want, which I'm too lazy to do. So I'm going to go to Auto 1, and that's going to set up my my red gains and blue gains for me automatically. But you can play with that as much as you want. It's up to you and your discretion. Exposure, since I am running on a full manual adjustments now, these exposure settings will now function, so we can turn on slow shutter or turn that off. I don't want to do slow shutter because that will make the picture look terrible. But you can set your shutter limit. Obviously, this needs to be on in order for that to work. And then you can set your threshold for your AES response, your gain limits. If you don't want the gain to go over a certain threshold, you can change that. Then you can manually change the gain if you want. So if you want to look like the surface of the sun, you can definitely do that. Let's go back to 14, I think. And I could set that as my limit, so that it won't go any higher than that. See? Once it hits the limit, it stops. Comp level, you can adjust that if you want. There's really no need for me to do that here. The iris, if you need to, shut the iris down all the way down to f14 if you want. If you got for some reason you're doing stuff outside or it's crazy bright or something like that, I just leave that at 1.6. Shutter speed, so this is set for 1080p 60, so I have it set at 60, but again in full auto it does that for me. High sensitivity is off. Again, sharpness, this should not be any higher than 3 or 4. You're going to get like a real crunchy picture if you go too high. So we're going to want to keep that at about 3 or 4. And that's personal preference, obviously. The black and white effect, for some reason, if you want that. Noise reduction should be off. This is going to create extra processing power, and it's going to make your picture look weird and soft. And so you really don't need to have noise reduction off unless there's a specific look that you're going for. But again, it increases processing time, and so you're going to want to keep that off to keep the frames as low as possible. We can flip the picture from here upside down. We can mirror the picture from here if we want. Deflicker is one of those options that also adds a frame, and so you're going to want to keep that off unless you're in full manual and you have those halogen lights or whatever that have the refresh, and they basically flash. It looks like there's like lines going up and down the screen. Deflicker will help combat that and will basically take your manual image and will change that around. WDR, if that's something you want, if that's the look you're going for, fine. And then, of course, we can adjust the color inside the picture itself. This is pretty much like gray. If you notice, all the color is gone. Here, color has come back. Hue, we can change the hue of the picture if we want. Again, don't really need to. And, of course, the contrast, if I want it to look way overblown or, no contrast at all, that looks terrible. You're welcome to do that. So this is, I believe it's 120 is the default. And we'll go from there. And then, of course, all the other Picture 2 settings, which are on the second menu. Backlight, comp, HLC mode, Chrome suppress, again, if you have a use for that. Gamma, 0 and 1. The default on this needs to be 0. Unless for some reason your other cameras are running all on 1, then that's fine. You have that option. Stabilizer adds a frame, and it also crops your picture. But if you're dealing with a shaky environment, it will help stabilize some of that stuff, especially if things are getting jostled around or whatever. It will help compensate for that and keep your image fairly stable. This is prudent on music stages where you might have drums or you might have a bass guitar or something that's really creating a lot of vibrations. This can help suppress some of that. However, it does add a frame, so FYI on that. And then once you have all your settings the way that you want, again, you can superimpose them onto another camera. And all you got to do here is drop down the copy settings and pull the camera that you want. So this is BirdDog camera C5547. So I would select that. And when I click on that, it would bring all of those settings over onto this camera. But like I said, because like, for example, this there's a light source right here above my camera, and it's lighting me fairly evenly for the C5547. With Knudsen Cam, it's actually in a dark corner, and it's catching all the light that's bouncing off of this wall and a lot of the ambient light that's hitting the ceiling. And so this lens is actually getting more light let into it than this one is, which is under my desk, looking directly from, underneath, under my monitors, which is looking directly underneath, which I could close this and oh, nope, you still see the Kibo coffee. Let's see if I can show you. Okay, so there's the P200 that's on Knudsen Cam, you can see C5547, which is right here. Okay, so you can copy that. However, if I do that, the image is going to not really be the same because that lens actually sees the light that's up there. Okay, so it's seeing, and it's obviously having to compensate for that sort of stuff. So you really want to go through and compare these two images and get them as close as you can. That's the whole point. And you can do that even with a third camera if you had one, which I don't. Actually, I don't. Well, I do, but not functioning. So you can have 3 cameras up. One of the cool things that I do want to show you before I kind of finish this demonstration is you can click on the preview image. And if you do that, watch this monitor. If you click on the preview image for the camera, it puts the full value NDI picture up on my second monitor. Now, when you open CamControl, you see CamControl will dominate your main screen, okay? It will basically consume monitor 1. If you have 2 monitors, it will leave monitor 2 open until you click on the preview. And then when you click on the preview, it will push the full value over to monitor 2 as a way for you to preview the changes. So if we go down here now and we say sharpness, we want to turn up sharpness, it's going to get all crunchy on that screen. Hey, thanks for the follow. It'll get all crunchy on the screen like that, and you can see all of the detail of what's going on that second monitor. So not only is it incredibly helpful to have these 2 images right next to each other, but now I can see all the detail from this image on a 27-inch monitor that I have running on the side. And if then I want to check, now the monitor needs to be color corrected to whatever your specifications are, okay? And monitors are not created equal. So understand that when we say we can push it to a second monitor, this monitor is actually more magenta than this one, but they're exactly the same make and model, and they actually come from the same product run. So this one's more red, this one's more true to form, okay? And my third monitor is actually the same as my middle. I've done a color test on both of them, but this one tends to be more red. So as you're color adjusting, you got to understand what the variances are for each of your monitors. And if you don't do that, you're going to color compensate for the monitor, but not for the actual NDI feed. And so the way to do that is to actually get a true monitor and then get a decoder and send it there, or however it is that you see the final product of your NDI stuff, check it there at the end and make sure that the coloration, everything is correct. Monitors are not created equal. They're not created with video production in mind. Actually, well, some are, but most aren't. These are gaming monitors. Again, this one's a little more red. I've monkeyed with it for hours. I can't get it to match, but that's just one of the problems that comes with buying low to mid-grade monitors, is that sometimes they're not all the same. So anyways, I'm really happy with this. And now to just change the preview, change the preview. I'm just going to click on the preview for this one. It takes a second and it pushes that live stream over there. And now I can see what my final product is going to look like on this one. And I can go down here, and while this is open, I can change these these settings. Maybe this is an indoor camera. Oh goodness. Okay, let's maybe say one outdoor camera. That's okay. It's a little bit hot. Go down here. Let's see if we can change the saturation a little bit. Where are we? It's under picture. Change the saturation. No, that's not the one. Contrast, maybe. Lighten it up a bit. You can also notice that on the preview for this monitor, it's really red. Whereas if I disconnect that monitor and it pushes it to this monitor, it's not red like that. So that's the magenta looping itself over and over and over. But anyways, you get the idea. You're able to adjust things on the fly, boom, and then you make them the same for all your cameras. And CamControl is the way to do that, is the way to get these cameras to talk to one another so that you can get the images correct and move them forward. Now, we got more than one BirdDog camera. We can click the X. Okay, we're good with this one. We'll click the X, and then we want to open up our next camera and get working on that one. Just simply select it. We do give you 3 columns to do that, and so the nice thing there is you're able to, for the most part, get all of your cameras looking the same, talking the same, and then get on with production. You do have camera control inside CamControl, ironically enough, and so if you want to use it as a live camera, control, that's fine. Be sure that you adjust each time you adjust the NDI speed control so that you slow it down to whatever it is. And this is an NDI threshold, basically, a speed threshold. So if you want to make it go faster or make it go slower, you set the threshold to whatever it is that you want, and now you have full control to do that without needing to use like Studio Monitor or something like that. And you can see everything that's happening here on each of those cameras as you're kind of directing and calling the show. So that's pretty much it. I really hope that that has been helpful for you and that you find some sort of benefit from CamControl. We really hope that you start using more of CamControl as you integrate BirdDog products across your line. This works with all of the BirdDog PTZ cameras right now, and it's a kind of a BirdDog exclusive product, and we're working hard to make this the answer, to make BirdDog cameras the answer for all of your NDI needs. Come join us on Twitch from 11 to 1 most days, Tuesday, Thursdays, Eastern Standard Time, and ask your questions. We're happy to talk about more CamControl as we go forward. And now we're going to take some Q&A, so hang tight.